So welcome everyone to the session about HTML5, and I am Carl Ford, your moderator. I'm here with my pal Joe Hildebrandt, who is the principal engineer over at Cisco. Wave to everyone, Joe. You did a nice job of that. So just to give the fact that we are a very diverse group, I want you to know, Joe, it's 80 degrees in our area right now. It's one of the best days of the year so far. And what's going on behind the curtains there?
Well, it was snowing here in Denver earlier, but the sun just peaked out, so I have high hopes for this afternoon.
Good, good. And skiers are happy in Denver, so that's good that you get snow. So yeah. From that standpoint, our goal today is to talk about HTML5. I always like when you've got current things that kind of bring relevance to stuff. So I do want to show people the iPad that's been passed around here today. I have not bought one myself. If you read my blog, you'll understand why, because I have high expectations for the future release of it. And, you know, I asked Santa for one is how I dealt with it. So that's my take on it right now. But first of all, let's kind of talk about your role in HTML5, Joe, and what's going on in the standards work as it is.
Sure. So people who don't know who I am, I've done a lot of work in presence and instant messaging in the past, specifically around XMPP, the protocol that's used there. So I've done a lot of work at the IETF around that. So I got encouraged to participate in a working group at the IETF called HYBI, and that's spelled H-Y-B-I, that is standardizing one of the pieces of the HTML5 specification, specifically the wire protocol for the WebSockets API. So WebSockets is this cool new bit that allows servers to push new notifications down to a browser client so that you can have a very interactive web experience, new short latency notifications coming in. And obviously coming from the IM world and the presence world, that kind of ability in a browser is interesting and important to me. We've got ways of working around that in the XMPP world, but having something that's built into the browser that gives us a very good security model that can scale a little bit better is something interesting. So I'm working with Saloretto, who is from Ericsson. We're the co-chairs of that working group. And then working very closely with the What Working Group and the W3C on how that piece of HTML5 moves forward.
So that's cool. The other side of HTML5 that we should talk about is the goal to get to the point where we're no longer having proprietary wrapping on media, and that basically we're going to get interoperability in media is a huge goal there. Have you seen any progress in the efforts to date? I heard that we had some roadblocks.
There are some differences of opinion, let's say, within the community that is that's talking about these standards. Particularly around the video tag, I think there's a lot of discussion around what formats are going to be mandatory to implement and which formats will be supported and that sort of thing. The way that these standard specs get written, the mandatory to implement piece is important because that's what you can always rely on being there. And so there's one camp that wants it to be, very open source, non-patent encumbered kinds of things. There's some people who want specific, well-deployed technologies to be, that mandatory to implement bit. And I think that there's still a lot of room for, wrangling back and forth on exactly what's going to go in there.
Right,
as the mandatory to implement.
Right, and there's some rumors that one of the reasons why Google acquired On24 our On2 technologies was for the specific purpose of releasing into the open source environment, which I haven't heard anything since that acquisition got started, and I think we're still, or we're almost done with the quiet period about it now, so we'll see what generates in the group. But from my knowledge, and I haven't seen anything in the group there. Let me ask you just to give a quick comparison between the IETF and the W3C in terms of how the standards work, and is everybody humming? How do we make it so that the standard gets fully implemented? Let me ask it that way.
Well, the interface between the IETF and the W3C is not really a part of the problem at the moment. So really the IETF focuses on the low-level wire protocols. So what's the bit that goes over the internet? And obviously that's one of the things that Cisco is really interested in, making sure that you can access these interesting kinds of technologies over the internet, which is why we're heavily involved there. The W3C tends to focus more on the bits inside the browser, not particular things, but that tends to be where their focus is. So things like HTML that is transported across the wire. The HTML5 group is also doing some JavaScript API development. So, what is the API for accessing this mechanism and having that standardized so that multiple browsers can implement it. And there's some interesting stuff between the What Working Group and the W3C that goes into their history. And since I'm not sort of directly involved in that piece of it, I sort of step into the middle of the various kinds of, let's say, political aspirations the different sides have.
Yeah, very well stated. It's nice when you can avoid the controversy, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, my focus has been on the IETF side of this for a long time, and the IETF and the W3C have a history of working really well together. The person who's currently our liaison from the W3C is Mark Nottingham from Yahoo, who does the proxy server that everybody uses, whose name is escaping me at the moment. But he's been very good at ensuring that we stay aligned.
Good. So, I guess the question, I got some love notes from some friends of mine when they saw that I was doing this, saying I'm HTML5 already, and I always kind of say yes, but. So can you kind of help explain where we are and what's going on with those kind of statements?
Yeah, I think that HTML5 is all about getting browsers moving forward in technology again, and doing it in such a way that it's not a browser war. So it's not, I put in a new tag and then you have to counter back and forth, but instead trying to make sure that things interoperate from the beginning. I think everybody's decided that interoperability is not just a nice to have, it's an imperative. Otherwise, you just can't develop a site. It's just too hard. So what's happening is we've got this new set of tags, this great new set of features and functionality that's in HTML5, and they're sort of slowly getting implemented in the different browsers. And none of the browsers support all the features yet. But some of the greatest hits are things like Canvas, which is a 2D drawing surface. We've seen some really cool game-type things start to be developed on top of this. Things that you would have had to drop to Flash or Java for in the past. And it's nice to be able to just do that directly in the browser with JavaScript. I think that the new browsers having good JavaScript support that is a lot faster than previous implementations is also, an important part of that. So Canvas is one piece. Video is a new tag that is also pretty important and is starting to get implemented in, it's in Safari and Chrome and a couple of different places already. And the reason why that's important is for sites like Yahoo that want to, like YouTube that want to do video down to devices that don't have Flash, like the one you held up a moment ago. So for streaming sorts of video, or I want to watch this video clip, that video tag is quite interesting. It's not really yet, let's say, optimized for a more interactive experience, and I think that's one of the things that is something that we'll need to keep talking about in that standards community.
So I've dug us down into the weeds as usual because I enjoy it down there to ask the critical path. But let's go back up to the big side, the big picture side of the equation. And let me ask you the very simple question. What should someone expect their browser experience to be like after HTML5 is implemented?
Well, I think that